Good day, everyone, and welcome to Open for Business. Let's talk resilience. I'm Edwin Salonga, the Country Program Manager in the Philippines of the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, or ADPC. And together with me today is...
Good morning, I'm Jonna from Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation.
Hi, Jonna.
All right, so as we are celebrating the National Disaster Resilience Month, we are focusing on the resilience of micro, small, and medium enterprises and how the MSME ecosystem supports our business owners.
Right. And now, why is it important to develop a supportive ecosystem for our MSMEs, especially during disruptive events? What do you think?
Well, UNDP reports that MSMEs comprise 99.5% of business establishments in the country, which employ approximately 63% of our workforce. MSMEs have been identified as the key to inclusive recovery for the Philippines.
Oh, that's right. Isn't it that MSMEs contribute 40% to the country's GDP in 2020? It's really important that we build a robust support mechanism for our local MSMEs.
Yes, that's why today we are bringing in Ms. Liza, Sir Vince, and Sir Butch to hear their stories on how their respective organizations provide support and ensure a healthy ecosystem is in place for our MSMEs. Let me start by introducing Ms. Liza Leong, who is Assistant Vice President for Advocacy and Communications of the Philippine Exporters Confederation Incorporated, which is the country's umbrella organization of exporters. To help push the export and PhilExport policy agenda, Ms. Leong sits as PhilExport representative or alternative representative to the PhilExport president in various government and private sector councils, committees, and technical working groups.
And then we also have Mr. Vince Rapisira. We fondly call him Sir Vince. He's the co-founder and president of SEDPI Group of Social Enterprises. He received recognitions as a social entrepreneur from Ernst & Young way back in 2012 and from PricewaterhouseCoopers in 2015, as well as in promoting social investments from the National Confederation of Cooperatives in 2017, Social Security System in 2019, and Home Development Mutual Fund, or what we call Pag-ibig, in 2020. As a financial guru, he creates online content for Usapang Pera and writes blogs and books that make financial concepts simple and understandable for Filipinos.
Last but definitely not the least, Mr. Butch Meily, who is the president of the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, or PDRF, a private sector disaster management organization. PDRF won the 2016 Prince of Wales Business and Community UPS International Disaster Relief Award. The organization plays a key role in the United Nations Connecting Business Initiative. He is also the president of QBO Innovation Hub, a public-private partnership recently launched to nurture, mentor, and prepare startups for exit.
We're very fortunate, Jonna, that we are joined today by Liza, Vince, and Butch. So let me start off our discussion. Let me pose this question to all of you. What do you consider the most urgent services needed or the gaps to be addressed to help MSMEs build their own resilience?
Well, I heard a while ago that Jonna was introducing the micro and small enterprises representing about 60% of the workforce, no? But I'd like to push that further because there's actually those who are invisible in this MSE framework, micro and small enterprise framework. And in SEDPI, we call them nano enterprises. These nano enterprises are even smaller than the micro enterprise, no? They usually just have less than 10,000 pesos in income per month. 89% of them are unbanked. They generally get 2 to 3 loans at any given time with an average loan size of about 10,000 pesos only. So you could imagine how small these nano enterprises are. And here in SEDPI, we are advocating that they be highlighted because in our estimate, there are about 8 million entrepreneurial low-income households that belong to this group as nano enterprises. And if we multiply that with the 5 household members in a typical Filipino family, that already represents about 40 million individuals that represent about 35% of the Philippine population. So I just want to put that forward para makompleto kasi 60% na yung micro and small natin. Here's another 30 to 35% na nano enterprises. And I think when we talk about resiliency and disasters, sila yung pinaka-vulnerable. They're the most vulnerable. You asked me about the gaps, no? So I have 3 gaps that I listed down. And one particularly for this group is the oppressive interest on loan, digital exclusion, and lack of social safety nets coming from the government and the community. No?
Great, thank you, Vince. How about Butch? What do you think about this issue?
Let me just keep this short, but I think there are 2 main needs. As Vince mentioned, one is financing. I know someone whose parents were selling clothes. They had a couple stores for many, many years, but during the pandemic, they lost them because they weren't able to sustain it. And so the access to loans is important in financing. The second need I see is the need for preparedness, because one disaster, one typhoon, one earthquake, which we had just Saturday morning, will destroy that business, destroy that hopes of that family and their future, their ability to send their kids to school. So those are the 2 main needs that I see for small businesses.
Thank you, Edwin, and I'm thankful I'm the last because I can just say all of the above. No, that's how many the problems of MSMEs are. But I agree on the financing, and then because I'm in charge of information dissemination, collection, and advocacy at PhilExport, I'd say it's also information, not the lack of it, because in fact we're drowning with information. It's really packaging them so that it's bite-sized, it's chewable for the MSMEs, and also the access. No, because when there are policies, for example, regulations, no matter how often you tell them and how often you send this, they will still say, we don't know. I don't know what happens in between the sending, and somewhere there's a gap there that they don't know. And we know that information is power. This is the start of everything. So that is something where we continue to work on and improve. And then of course you have capacity building, which is linked to technology and financing and to marketing and to logistics and all these things in the supply chain that MSMEs need to go through. And this is something also that I think they need, no? Inspirations, models. And then so I'd like to thank PDRF for everything that you're doing, no? Especially in areas like mentoring and modeling, because MSMEs will always need somebody, a big brother, no, to help them and walk them through. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your sharing. And definitely the glaring element or need, no, in the discussion is the financial access to loans, giving them, that power to expand their businesses through financial help. Given your organization, no, how can you best address these identified needs?
So going with the first gap, with the oppressive interest on loans, what they actually need in our experience and what we have done on the ground is to veer away from extending loans, but rather extending capital. Why do we do this? Because we move away from interest-based approach, that is with the conventional banking approach. It keeps on compounding. It keeps on accruing and compounding, even if the reason for non-repayment is external to the nano enterprises. And that's usually the case. It's about disasters. It's about some insurgency in the community. So we decided to provide capital instead through joint ventures, where we share in the risks and profit of their enterprises. We also say that in our system, loss follows capital. That means the one who is investing, which is us, SEDPI, will absorb the risks and not the nano enterprises. And we no longer call our members delinquent borrowers or delinquent business partners if they're not able to repay their capital back to us, if the cause of the non-repayment is due to disasters and calamities. So that's one move that we did, no? And then on the second gap, which is the digital exclusion, we found out that in our client base, only 3% have mobile wallets and are into online banking, and 68% have no digital payment experience. This was a pre-pandemic research that we conducted. And then when we did our research just recently this March, we found out that 18% of them have already bought consumer goods through online from 3%, no, pre-pandemic level. And this is what's exciting. 26% of them have sold products online already, and 29% have bought supplies for their businesses. So what this shows us is that nano enterprises can actually adopt the technology if they have access to it. But the gap here is, of course, internet connectivity and smartphone ownership. Kasi yung the capacity building that goes with it, the training, the learning curve, they did it on their own in the most unimaginable circumstance. They're in the far-flung areas, no internet connectivity, lack of equipment, but they're able to pivot if they're given the access to that. The third gap is the lack of government social safety nets. So what SEDPI did here is we partnered with SSS and Pag-ibig to bring the social insurance service of the government closer to the lower income groups. We're operating in Agusan del Sur, Surigao del Sur, Davao de Oro, and Davao del Norte. So talagang far-flung siya, Caraga area. We also partnered with the cooperative to provide insurance, life insurance for them. And then we reinvigorated and revisited our Damayan system, which is a very effective indigenous insurance practice. And we use this for fire, calamity, and medical assistance for our members. And with this, what we always say in social entrepreneurship, you do good. When you do good, you will do well. And that's what happened. When we compare our performance with other microfinance institutions in the area, our portfolio at risk last year was 7%. That's compared to 25 to as high as 50% portfolio at risk that the industry suffered because of the pandemic.
Right. Thank you. Sir Butch?
Yes, well, there are a number of resources. First of all, we created ccap.com.ph, a free one-stop digital hub where you can access loans for small businesses. And also there are free online mentoring sessions there as well. And there's a game version of the Journey Towards Resilience. There's also a comic book. This is for people like me who have trouble reading. And, it's got a heroine called Tina. Talks about her resilience journey. We also have an MSME guidebook. It's also available. You can download it on ccap.com.ph. It's a how-to reference material, how to prepare for disasters. And the other thing is that we also have these mobile apps that are available and free to the public. And we have business continuity training available through our iAdapt platform, which is all online, so you'll be safe and you'll learn as well.
Yes, PhilExport has executive and legislative agenda, and as far as, for example, financing is concerned, we're heavily pushing for the passage of the Magna Carta for MSMEs, which will really facilitate financing, removing the SB Corporation under the regulatory cover of the Bangko Sentral so that they can provide more developmental and out-of-the-box financing solutions for MSMEs. So that's one. And then, of course, we continue to work with partners such as the DOST, DTI, DOLE, DAP for a particular project we call the Road to Fire, where we are trying to handhold our members who are interested to upgrade their operations towards the fourth industrial revolution in areas such as production, marketing, all these things. And then for capacity building and information, we have packages and services and programs that we deliver at PhilExport. And all this we do with partners, government and private sector partners like PDRF and the Resilience Core Group.
Thank you. I'm very happy to know our listeners are also learning a lot about the programs that you have, both SEDPI, PhilExport, and PDRF, all the interventions that are available for your clients or for our countrymen, especially targeting the MSMEs. Which kinds of expertise and experiences are relevant, do you think, when crafting programs to build the resilience of MSMEs?
I'll do this by demonstration because my message really here for expertise is partnership building. So I'd like to know more about your programs in CCAP, Butch, and of course for Liza, right, on PhilExport. I'm very excited that you're saying that you want to think of out-of-the-box financial products for nano, micro, and small enterprise. And of course, to Butch also, aside from us getting resources from you, no, SEDPI also has a wealth of resources. Our researchers are available. We also provide financial literacy trainings to nano and micro enterprises. And I think this is a good way for us to come together, synergize, because the more, the merrier, and we can have a better impact with that.
The whole idea is that we formed this resilience core group, 2016. A number of our organizations are part of it, PhilExport and of course ADPC and many others. But the whole idea is to strengthen the resilience of MSMEs, not just in Metro Manila, but throughout the country. I also want to mention that we have a number of startups, believe it or not. These are people for a lot of young kids, certainly younger than me, and they have all these ideas, and you'll be surprised at how many of them have. They have loan programs for sari-sari stores. They have tools to digitize MSMEs. To sell their products overseas or to get them listed on Amazon. It's really amazing, and they're making money doing it. So it's great news for the country.
I think that the PhilExport story is really about collaboration and creativity, especially in dealing with the so many problems of MSMEs, the different levels of development of all our members nationwide, and that will require a strong network to work with. We could have not done anything at all by ourselves alone. So I think that whatever we have is a result of a strong collaboration with partners all these years. And then of course creativity, how do you raise funds, how do you implement programs, how do you engage MSMEs? These things are all works in progress, stories of evolution of companies and organizations and partnerships. And then finally, we need technical skills, because many SMEs will need hand-holding. Where do we export? How do we do this? What technology is needed? So talagang hand-holding. So I think all these skills will come into play when you assist MSMEs.
Thank you very much. I think in that conversation, we really saw the importance of collaboration and involving all the different stakeholders within the MSME ecosystem. What do you think are the key traits and skills needed by program implementers in the private sector to ensure effective and sustainable service delivery? And also, just to add, because I really like the discussion about synergy earlier, do you ensure that there's a synergy of programs within the MSME ecosystem?
I think for me, it's more on putting what you can contribute on the table and getting what you need. Kasi sa atin kasi in the Philippine setting, usually, di ba, kampo-kampo. I think we have to get out of that mindset already. This is the civil society, this is the private sector, this is the government. I think all three should come together and put resources on the table, and then everybody just gets what they need. One thing also is, I think, in terms of the expertise side, is managers for nano enterprises and SMEs in this field should be able to learn from experience and should not also stop themselves from sharing their good practices, because I think that's what's lacking. We all have our good experiences and it worked, but we're not able to put it forward. Kasi capitalist yung tingin, di ba? Let me take this because this becomes my competitive advantage. But in reality, if we talk about resiliency and disaster preparedness, disaster management, you put that forward, we become more resilient, the community grows, and we all support a thriving business.
Well, I think perseverance is important. You've got to keep going no matter what, because it can be tough doing these programs and working with people. And sometimes it's like pushing a rock up the hill and the rock keeps rolling down again. But you have to keep pushing it. So I think that's important. Also patience, because it's a difficult process. You gotta be patient with people because you're dealing with a lot of people and really helping them learn new things, new skills.
Yes, I agree with Sir Butch, patience, commitment, perseverance, I'm in advocacy and there are issues which have been there for 3 decades already. And yet you continue to keep pushing, no? And financing is one of this, no? Up to now, we continue to talk about access to finance for MSMEs. And when I came to PhilExport 3 decades ago, that sounded too long, they were already talking about financing. So talaga, patience, no? Perseverance, commitment, focus on the goal, no? Look at the goal and the whole picture, and where you want to lead the industry. Of course, PhilExport as the umbrella organization has to take that position. No? We are the voice of exporters, and so we have to be, strong in mind, body, and spirit, so that our members will also somehow get that vibe, no, from PhilExport. So yeah.
So thank you very much to all our speakers for today. We learned a lot, really. But before we end, I think it's also good if we can hear from our key speakers some takeaway messages, maybe the most important things that you think our listeners need to remember from our discussion for today.
So I think to address disaster resiliency or to improve disaster resiliency among nano, micro, small enterprises, we can take a look at making social entrepreneurship as the standard of doing business, because with this, we consider not just the profitability, we also to take a look at the social and environmental aspects of implementing our livelihood.
Thank you very much, Vince. I think that's what we call the 3 Ps, no? The people, planet, and profit. And I think, of course, PhilExport and PDRF would agree with you on that regard. So we move on to Butch.
Well, if there's one thing that we've learned from the pandemic, it's that, we're all connected. We're all affected. If something happens in a small city in China that we've never heard of, somebody in Italy, New York, or Navotas is going to get sick. So knowing that, I think we all need to be working together. As Vincent mentioned earlier, there's a wonderful platform called PhilPrep and Asian Preparedness, which ADPC and Edwin and his colleagues put together. And Office of Civil Defense is there, civil society is there with the Center for Disaster Preparedness, and PDRF, the private sector. So it's a good model in which, as Vince mentioned, silos are broken, we work together. And I think that's the way we have to face the problem with MSMEs and the future, because it's a complicated future that we're all facing. And especially if you're a business owner, and we can get through it if we work together.
Very, very well said. Thank you, Butch. And finally, the only rose among the thorns, Liza.
Yeah, I think up to this point, the Philippines and the Filipino is a story of resilience. I'm glad that it's in our DNA, I think, as a country and as a people, that we are a resilient nation. No? And this is very important because of where we are, politically, geographically, economically, socially. So the things that we're doing, PDRF and everybody here, is really very relevant and important for Filipinos as individuals, for families, for the society, and especially for the economy and our MSMEs. And so we just have to continue to do this, because I think at least geographically we cannot move the Philippines out of this spot. So there is always need for proactivity and the programs and services that we are all doing.
Thank you very much, Lisa. For me, I learned a lot from today's discussion. I think the value of synergy, the value of supporting communities, not only our own institutions, and then third is supporting each other, especially the nano enterprises as a part of the MSME sector. How about you, Jonna?
I totally agree, Edwin. No? This has been a short conversation, but very insightful and very meaningful. No? I especially like that SEDPI really focuses on the nano enterprises and focusing on giving them capital instead of providing loans. No? I think it's really important, and it gives that sense of empowerment to these people. Also, as you mentioned, the importance of collaboration and having a strong network also exhibited that during our discussion now. In PDRF, for example, we are really very keen on partnering with different stakeholders and different organizations to make sure that we're able to deliver and commit to capacity building, which was also one of the focuses of PhilExport, no, making sure that we're developing technical skills of these MSMEs. I guess this has been a very, very insightful discussion, Edwin. I wish we had more time to do this, no? We could probably do this all day with all the beautiful insights that we're getting from our resource person.
So once again, let me thank our resource persons for today, Ms. Liza Leong of the Philippine Exporters Confederation,
Thank
Inc.,
you as well.
or PhilExport, Mr. Vince Rapisira of SEDPI Group of Social Enterprises, and of course, Mr. Butch Meily of the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation or PDRF. Muli po, maraming salamat sa inyo. This is brought to you by the Philippine Preparedness Partnership or PhilPrep, the national chapter in the Philippines of the Asian Preparedness Partnership or APP. Established by the Asian Disaster Preparedness Center, the APP is a unique multi-stakeholder regional partnership that includes countries from South and Southeast Asia to better prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters.